Sometimes living well is the best revenge. I'll have a little bit more on that in just a moment. Not every bad thing that happens to you in the course of your life should be the subject of a lawsuit. I have had people come in to me and ask to sue for some of the silliest things. I once had a call from a gentleman who said he wanted to sue the aliens. And I thought perhaps he meant illegal aliens, but what he meant was the people who were beaming down and abducting him and taking him into space. Now you laugh about that and you think, well, that's kind of crazy. But he actually wanted to sue, and he actually believed that he had been abducted. So you have to know that there are a lot of squirrely things that people think about with regard to lawsuits. I've seen questions on a number of different bulletin boards on the internet. I guess that dates me, but things like Reddit, where people say, can I sue for this or can I sue for that? Well, people sue for ridiculous stuff all the time. There are lawsuits in the federal courts by prisoners, what the judges call recreational litigation, where they sue, for example, because they were served chunky peanut butter instead of creamy peanut butter. I know of a case where a lawyer had to represent somebody at trial because he wasn't given the proper therapeutic diet that he was supposed to be on. And he claimed that they were giving him all kinds of fatty meats in the food that he was getting from the prison cafeteria. And it turned out that the real harm that was being done were the 36 cases of Twinkies that he ate over the course of his stay in the federal prison or in the state prison there. So prisoners do a lot of silly, ridiculous, frivolous litigation, and some of it that's not so silly and not so frivolous, like writs of habeas corpus. But just because somebody has wronged you doesn't necessarily mean that you want to sue them. I'll give you a good example. I had a person come in and say that they had been assaulted by another person. And I said, okay, were you hurt? No. Why do you want to sue? Because I want to teach that person a lesson. I want to teach him that he can't get by with this. Well, that's a fine reason to bring a lawsuit in many cases, particularly if the defendant is a multinational corporation and they're really causing harm. But here the only harm was hurt feelings, and it simply had no economic value. No rational jury would have awarded that man a dime because somebody threw a glass of water on him. You know, he wasn't the Wicked Witch of the West. He didn't melt. The most common kind of case where I think there is a significant problem with people just not being willing to accept the result is employment litigation. You'll have somebody who was late to work for the third time in a month and who gets fired and who wants to sue for wrongful discharge. Wrongful discharge claims, about 1 in every 1,000 proceeds to trial, and of those that go to trial, less than half get won. In order to win a wrongful discharge claim, there has to be some pretty serious abusive behavior. And if that's not the case, just the fact that you were fired is not a good reason to sue somebody. You have to be fired for an unlawful reason. One of the things that we say frequently is that you can be fired for any reason or no reason, but not for an unlawful reason. So you can be fired for wearing yellow shoes to work, but you can't be fired for being an African American or a woman or a man. Any of those things can get you, potentially get you in a recovery under the Civil Rights Act. But again, the evidence has to be there. And many times you really were fired just because you were late. And that's not a good reason to sue. The fact of the matter is, living well is the best revenge. Early on in my first career as a respiratory therapist, I was discharged from a hospital in Oregon, Ohio. I thought it was terribly unfair. But I decided that I would simply go about my business and that I would not sue and that I wouldn't take any punitive action with regard to that individual institution simply because I didn't think it would be worth my time and trouble. And it turned out to be the right answer for me. Similarly, about 10 years later, I was fired from my first job as a lawyer. I was working for a law firm. I had 42 cases on my docket. I was dancing as fast as I could, but I couldn't keep up. And so they let me go. And they entered into an agreement with me where they gave me severance pay. And again, when you take severance, you don't get to sue, and that's fine. Since then, I have consistently advised most people who wish to continue to work in their field simply not to sue when they're fired. Go find another job. Go find a better job. Make those people sorry they fired you, not by suing them, but by doing so well at the other company that it lifts that company above the one that you used to work for. There are lots of ways to sort of have your revenge without destroying your career. When you get the reputation that you sue at the drop of a hat, then in many cases, it makes it much harder for a company to take you on as an employee because you have that reputation. They don't want to get sued. They don't want to have to pay money. Now, that's not saying that if you have a legitimate grievance and you've been damaged significantly that you shouldn't sue. You should always talk to a lawyer if you think it's in your best interest to consider a lawsuit. If you think a wrong has been done to you that is based on race, religion, the color of your skin, any of those things, absolutely see a lawyer, but listen to their advice. There is a thing in law called de minimis non curat lex. It means the law does not concern itself with trifles. And unfortunately, just being PO'd that you didn't get to stay on in the job is not a good reason to file a lawsuit. So that's some practical observations from the standpoint of an attorney who's been doing this for 27 years. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them down below. And if you would, I'd appreciate it if you'd smash the like button and click on the subscribe icon so that you can be notified whenever I release a video on this channel. Thank you for watching and have a terrific day.